If you're building real-time applications or applications that react to events, I have a just perfect service for you. It's a highly scalable, highly reliable, and a cheap service, Azure Event Grid. This is Adam, and today, introduction to Azure Event Grid. Stay tuned. So let's talk about Event Grid. Event Grid is a fully managed event routing service, so its main purpose is routing events. So if you're building those real-time, near real-time applications that needs to react to events, being in Azure or non-Azure services, this is one of the best services you can use. So let's talk about some key concepts. First of all, you have event. This is a description of something that happened. You have event source. This is the place where the event was taking place. For instance, a lot of event sources in Azure are blob storages, resource groups, and Azure subscriptions, so you can react to events for something that is happening within your subscriptions. There are event hubs, media services, IoT hubs, and many other services. Next, you also have something called topic. A topic, as simply said, a RESTful endpoint where you can send your custom events if you're building applications. There's an event subscription. So whenever there's an event coming into a topic, you can subscribe and handle those events within your applications. Those are called subscriptions. And lastly, you have event handlers. So those are the applications that handle those subscription and the event that are coming from them. And for here, you have a lot of examples like serverless codes with functions. You have integration services like logic apps. You have some buffering and competing consumers like event hubs, storage queues, and other applications like webhooks, which pretty much is any service out there, Azure Automation, but also it's not mentioned here, but you can use that with services like Data Factory to trigger your ETL workflows whenever there are new files coming in. So, couple of scenarios. First of all, one of the most common scenario for event-based architecture using Event Grid is serverless. So you can instantly, pretty much near instantly, react to events like on blob storage. So whenever there's a new image coming in, you can react using Event Grid and process that image immediately. Additionally, you can do operation automation. Since I already mentioned, you can react to events in your resource group and Azure subscription. You can notify services like Azure Automation to run some diagnostics, run some operation automation scripts on your infrastructure in Azure. Additionally, you can do any sort of application integration because there is something called Event Grid topics, which allow you to create custom endpoints and send custom events to your other application. So it's a great tool to do application integrations. What are the key benefits? First of all, simplicity. It's just a couple of clicks and the service is working. There's something called filtering. So you can actually, when creating subscription, you can create filters and only react to a subset of events coming through out of the box without needing to code anything. You can do fan out scenarios. So when one event is coming through, you can have multiple subscribers listening to the same event. So you can very easily code that functionality. You have reliability, in which case this is one of the actually very cool features. When your service will fail to process the event, Event Grid will try to send that event over and over to your service for 24 hours with an exponential backup. So it's very, very good feature. And lastly, the cost is actually quite small because you pay only for 1 million operations for 60 cents. So it's quite good price for what you get. What are the capabilities? Of course, you pay per event, so the pricing is very good. It's one of the key features of the service. There's a very high throughput because you can actually process even millions of events per second. So it's amazing feature. There are built-in events. So as we already been saying, you can react to blob changes, to Azure resource changes, a lot of built-in events that you can already hook up to. And you can build custom events if you need that additional integration between your application components. So today we're gonna have 3 demos. First of all, I'm gonna use logic apps to consume built-in events in Azure to react to blob changes. Second, we're gonna also use logic apps to send some custom events to our event grid topic. And the third, I'm gonna use the custom event grid topic and I create subscription so that a lot of services, in this case I will use logic apps and I will use Azure Storage Queue to handle those events. So let's go into the portal. So for our first demo, we're gonna need a storage account. So let's go and create that. Let's go, hit on storage account, select our subscription and select our resource group. Let's give it a name. I'm gonna call it Event Grid Demo. That's already taken, so I'm gonna add one. I'm gonna leave everything else as default, so hit review and create, and hit create. This deployment takes about 2 minutes, I'm gonna wait for that. And we're done. The reason that I wanted to wait for storage account is because Event Grid is different than any other service, because normally you would go to this plus and just type Event Grid to get your Event Grid service. The difference is Event Grid is a central service in Azure, so the only things you actually created are topics and subscriptions. But since first demo is using built-in events, we don't actually have to create anything. So you can go directly and start creating our logic app. So let's do that. So our logic app will be called new blob event. And I'm gonna put it in our resource group and leave it in North Europe. So review and create, and let's wait. That was pretty quick. We already have the logic app, so we can go to the resource group and see our resources. So in order to do this demo, I need to first go to the storage account and create a container called demo. To this container, I will upload a file, but before I do that, we need to make sure about two things. First of all, you need to go to your subscription and to check if there is Event Grid registered. So this is one-time operation that your administrator on a subscription needs to do, because if the Event Grid is not registered globally, you're not gonna receive any events. So go to your subscription, go to something called Resource Providers, and find Event Grid. So in my subscription, it's already registered. That means it's centrally working and I can start using it. So since we have our storage account and a container ready, let's go to Logic App and start from the blank application and use Event Grid. You can search for it, but I already have it here. And there's a built-in event when the resource event occurs. So I'm gonna use that as a trigger. I'm gonna sign in. I'm gonna sign in using my account, but you can also use it using Service Principal. So what you need to pick in order to use built-in event, you need to pick a subscription. You need to pick a resource type. In this case, this is a storage account type of resource. And next you need to pick a resource name. That's gonna be our Event Grid Demo 1. And what kind of event you're reacting to. In which case I'm reacting to Microsoft Storage blob created. So now I can actually save this and test this. So I'm gonna open one more tab, actually two more tabs. In this tab I will open our storage account so we can quickly upload files and go back to the Logic App to see the results. So we'll go to the blob, go to the demo, hit upload, and select from the file any sort of file. This can be this movie CSV file. Let's upload this, and let's go back to our blob and refresh. And notice that this Logic App already ran. It ran really fast. We didn't have any delay, no waiting, no checking. It immediately ran as soon as the file landed, because Event Grid is really fast. It's designed for those real-time applications. But notice something interesting. If I will go back to blob and create another container called demo2, and upload file there, Let's go to my sample files and upload 3 files. And go back to Logic App and hit refresh. It also runs on a second container. And this is one of the good features, but also a feature that you should be aware of and be wary of when you're designing. You need to use filters to filter only events from a single container. To do that, you go to Edit, and you need to edit the trigger and add a filter. So you add a new parameter and a prefix filter, and put the prefix filter like this. This is a static way of managing events and filtering events from containers, and you basically just grab this from documentation. So by typing in demo2, I'll make sure that I only react to events from blob services default containers and a container called demo2. So let's save this again and test again. So I'm gonna upload 2 files into this container. I'm gonna override those, and I will go back to the demo container and upload 6 files, actually 7. So let's hit that, let's upload, we're done. I would be expecting that since I uploaded only 2 files in a second container, I should have only 2 executions of the Logic App. So let's go to here, refresh, and we have only 2 more. That's perfect. You should remember to make sure that this filter is there, because it's very easy to make a mistake and do a Silk Road dependency when you're triggering off the storage account and putting the files on the same storage account and burning through money like butter. So make sure to get that filters in. So this was the first demo. This was how you can actually consume built-in events in a very rapid manner. You just use any service that can hook up to Event Grid, like Logic Apps, RESTful APIs, and just use the events that are already there. So let's go for the second demo. In the second demo, we're gonna create a custom event. To do that, I'm gonna hit plus and type Event Grid. And I'm gonna create a new topic. This topic will be my custom event that I want to do. So I'm gonna call it new cars. I'm gonna select subscription. I'm gonna select the resource group, a region. Of course, I like to have everything in the same region, so North Europe, and leave the schema as default. Hit create and wait a minute. Since this is done, we can go to the resource. In our resource group, we see our new Event Grid topic called new cars. And right now we can start sending events to this endpoint. So let's try that. Let's go to, and actually, let's create another Logic App that will be called send events. We'll use this Logic App to send some custom events to our Event Grid topic. So let's hit create. And within a couple of seconds, we will be able to create a Logic App. So let's go to the resource, go to designer. I like to start for the demos with HTTP trigger because it's just manual, since I will be hitting run anyway. So I'm adding a new step, and I need to, this time, instead of using Azure Event Grid, I need to use Azure Event Grid Publish. So I'm hitting on this step, and there's an action called Publish Event. So I need to specify what is the name of the connection. That's gonna be new cars. I need to specify what is the endpoint, so the URL for your Event Grid endpoint. To get it, you go back to your Event Grid, and there's a topic endpoint here. So I'm just gonna copy that, paste it here, and you need to give shared access signature SAS token to authorize to this service. You can get it from the access key blade. So copy that again, go back to this and hit create. Now that you saved the connection, you can start sending events. So first of all, you need an ID. For ID, I like to always use expression with GUID. What is the subject? I'm gonna call it new car. What is the event type? Well, that can be the same. It's not really relevant. Those information are relevant if you're writing those filters later on. So it's already your application logic. From the perspective of this service, this can be any value here. And of course the data. So I'm gonna set the JSON. So there's gonna be Audi, and maybe I'm just gonna add some random number. And I think that's it. So let's save and let's test this. So I'm gonna be sending one custom event with randomized car into my event grid. That we successfully checked the trigger and we manually run the step, and we've sent our Audi 75 into event grid. And that was the second demo, because this is already sending events to your topic. But as you can imagine, this is not full integration yet, because no one is listening for those events. There are no subscriptions on this event grid yet. And to do that, I will go back to my event grid topic and hit here on event subscription. So I'm gonna hit plus and create new subscription. I'm gonna call this Logic App subscription. To create Logic App subscription, I need to have Logic App that will allow me to call it. And before I go there and create that Logic App, you need to know what endpoint is supported. And there are a couple of endpoints that are supported right now. From drop down here, you select what kind of endpoint this is. Either it's a webhook, so this can be any application. This is gonna be the case for us, for the Logic Apps. We're gonna use a webhook. But you can automatically put it into storage queues. I'm gonna show that in a second. But there are also event hubs, hybrid connections, and service bus queues. So I'm gonna use webhook, and before I can actually give it, I need a new Logic App. So I will hit plus and create third Logic App. I'm gonna create a Logic App that will be a simple webhook that I can call to simulate our RESTful endpoint for our applications. Go to the resource, and I don't really need anything besides HTTP trigger and just saving it. After we saved it, we get a unique webhook URL to our Logic App. So I'm just gonna copy this URL and go back to our subscription, select an endpoint, paste it here, confirm selection, and hit create. Subscription was created. We now have one subscription that is listening for our car events. So if we go back to our Logic App Designer, the one that is sending events, send events Logic App, I'm gonna run it again. In the meanwhile, I will go back to the webhook demo and I will focus here on the refresh history. So let me actually refresh, and it already came through. So this step finished, published event to Event Hub, and Event Hub immediately sent event to the subscriber to this webhook. And lastly, let's show you how easy it is to get multiple subscribers in. I'm gonna go back to the resource group. I'm gonna open the resource group, and for this demo I will use the storage account queues. So I'm gonna go here, open Storage Explorer, and create new queue called new cars. I'm gonna open that queue and show you it's currently empty. So to take leverage of this functionality, you go back to your resource group, go back to your event grid topic, and create new subscription. Since subscription, we already said, is this fan out scenario, you can have multiple subscription for a singular topic. So this is gonna be our queue. And the Endpoint type in this case is storage queue. You need to select an endpoint, select the storage account, hit this one, and select the queue. Confirm selection and hit create. Before I do that, this is also the place where you can specify filters, so you can react to subset of changes if you want to. But I'm not gonna do that. There's gonna be separate training on that. And you of course have some more advanced filters here as well. So let's hit create. And right now we have 2 subscriptions. So going back to our example, let's refresh the resource group on this tab. We have send events logic app, and let's run that trigger a couple of times. As you see, I've run it 3 times. Therefore, I'm expecting that on my queue, I have 3 events, so it's working just fine. And of course, I can go back to the resource group and also confirm that my webhook was also called 3 times, each with a new car information. And that's it. This is how easily you can leverage Event Grid in your applications. Now that you know Event Grid, just go and start using it in your application. It's fast and easy, so just go for it. That's it for today. If you liked the video, hit thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And see you next time.